You took his life and said bye. You showed no remorse for him. None. Not for me, not for my daughter, not for his kids. Because you had no remorse for my son and you showed no empathy for him. You deserve every single year they can give to you.
This is the story of Demonte Smith, age 29, a rapper who was shot and killed by the mother of his child, Quaneesha Nicole Johnson, age 30, in the presence of police officers because he was upset that she went partying overnight and left the kids with him. Quaneesha, who asked the officers what it means if she kills him and claim self-defense, went through with the dangerous threat. She hit him with an iron bar on his head, then shot him in the chest and told him, bye. Hello and welcome to Twisted Crimes. Subscribe and hit the like button for more stories. This story will be taking us to Lithonia, Georgia. Lithonia is a suburb of Atlanta with a population of 2,614. Lithonia is a small but unique city in Atlanta's East Metro area. Its nickname is the City of Granite, due to the amount of rock found in the community, but there is much more to it than that. Lithonia presents a total crime rate that is 13% lower than the national average per 100,000 residents. Demonte Smith, age 29, was a rapper out of Atlanta who was aspiring to be great. He had some songs on social media.
You got MTC on the track, man. You ain't trying to get your hands dirty, what you in it for? I done robbed plenty folks, I done cut plenty dope. And I know the nigga that shot my nigga, but he ain't standing dope. And I heard he died and I survived, so what you panic for? Young nigga, lot of mouths to feed, I'm in family mode. Spit your cantaloupe, yeah, just to get the other load.
He was trying his best to make it big. Demonte was in a relationship with someone named Quaneesha Nicole Johnson, age 30. They were very close. They had a child together. They were so close that she was in most of his music videos.
Y'all know a motherfucking Bronx dog. Tell me something different. Tell me something different.
I know this little bitch, she cap it to me.
I know this little bitch, I know this little bitch, she cap it to me. I been through too much, they what happened to me. And how you want smoke, you ain't matching nothing. So I'm moving right now, they acting funny.
Demonte was known by the law. He was said to have led police on a long chase not too long before this incident, which got him arrested and jailed. According to friends, when he got back out, he had nowhere to go, so he met Quaneesha, who took her into her house with her other kids. Demonte was also said to reportedly have a history of domestic abuse. On November 26, 2022, Quaneesha had gone out clubbing with her friends and left her 3 children with Demonte, the father of her youngest child. Demonte was expecting to see Quaneesha back at home early in the morning around 6 a.m., but she never made it back home and her phone was off, so he called all local hospitals and jails looking for her. It made it worse because before her phone went off, she told him she was about to get into a fight with a group of people. Around 9 a.m. when she eventually turned her phone back on, she got messages from Demonte. The text messages showed that he was upset and angry and also threatened to hit her when she got home. Demonte is known to having a history of abuse and had threatened to beat and kill other women in the past. She called her family members, who conference called Demonte into the conversation. They advised her to go with a police escort, which she called 911 and asked for one. When she returned to the home about 2 hours later, one of the DeKalb County police officers who responded told her to put her gun in her car, which she did. While the police was there, they went back and forth with each other, so the officer told them to go calm down indoor. The officers tried to resolve their dispute, but Quaneesha continued to talk over them and was combative with them. Officers were finally able to send them indoors to calm down. As she walked inside, Quaneesha asked the officers what would happen if she shot Demonte in self-defense and told them that she had already looked up the self-defense law. While officers were outside waiting to see how things will go, Quaneesha went back outside, grabbed a metal tire iron and her gun from her car, and went back inside the house. She told one of her children to call 911 and say that Demonte had hit her, which was later confirmed that he never did.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
My mom just said I wanted and I feel like I'm in danger.
What's the address?
796 Airmail.
Okay, do you know the phone number you're calling from? Do you know the phone number you're calling from?
I don't know. She just hit my mom.
Quaneesha then hit Demonte in the head with the tire iron and then shot him. The gunshot was heard on the 911 call, as well as Quaneesha repeatedly saying "bye" to Demonte afterwards. Demonte went outside and told the officers, "She hit me in the head with a metal thing and then shot me. Hurry before I die." He then collapsed. Quaneesha was instantly arrested in front of her kids, even though she could be heard saying, "I told you to help me." During an interview at police headquarters, she admitted Demonte did not hit her that day. Investigators later learned Demonte had requested a rideshare to leave the house, but was killed just minutes before it arrived. She pleaded not guilty and the case was sent to trial.
And the case is against this woman. She is the defendant. Her name is Quaneesha Johnson, and she is alleged to have shot and killed her boyfriend, Demonte Smith. This incident occurring back in November of last year. The state of Georgia saying it was murder, but Johnson says she shot him in self-defense to protect herself from her boyfriend, who she says was her abuser. For more on the background of this case, here's Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae.
A domestic dispute turned deadly after Quaneesha Johnson fired a shot into the chest of her boyfriend, Demonte Smith. On November 27, 2022, Johnson called the police 3 different times after receiving what she called threatening messages and phone calls from her boyfriend. Once arriving at her home, she also set off a burglar alarm to get police to show up. She eventually flagged down an officer near her home. In front of police and outside of their home, Johnson and Smith engaged in a verbal altercation. Officers then instructed both to go inside, observing no physical abuse. But before returning to her home, Johnson asked an officer what would happen if she shot her boyfriend in self-defense. That officer allegedly responded she would need to be able to articulate her need for using a weapon in self-defense. As the officers leave the scene, Johnson is seen grabbing a tire rod and her handgun. A few minutes later, a gunshot is heard from inside the home. Smith is rushed to the hospital and later dies from his wounds. Johnson now faces several charges, including malice murder, aggravated assault, and child cruelty, since the shot was fired in front of her children. Prosecutors believe there was no imminent threat, and once Johnson grabbed the tire rod and gun, she intended to kill her boyfriend. The defense claims Smith had a history of domestic violence against his girlfriend, and that she was attempting to prevent another incident from occurring when she took that weapon for protection after police didn't intervene. The defendant plans to testify and explain her actions in front of the jury in an attempt to prove she acted in self-defense.
She was interrogated by the lawyers during trial. All the 911 calls were played.
You just got out of the cab from me about a month ago.
How long until you arrive at the location?
I'm 7 minutes ago. 9 minutes.
You said where? 9 minutes?
9 minutes ago.
What kind of car are you in? Color, make?
I'm in a white Dodge Ram pickup truck.
Okay, what's your name?
Quaneesha Johnson.
And what do you need an escort for? Are you just trying to gather belongings, or?
No, I live here. The house is my name. I just see him.
And so when he comes out, what's going through your mind? What happens?
I immediately go into parents' mode of the well-being of my daughter being outside at 2 months, head naked, sweater diaper, no head, and 60-degree weather in November.
And what happens after that?
I asked him, to put my daughter in the home.
And did Officer Krause instruct Mr. Smith to give you your daughter so you could take her in the house?
He does.
And did he follow the officer's instructions?
He did.
Now, tell us what happens between you and Demonte while the officers are there.
After I asked for him to give me my baby so I could take her in the house, he then goes to say, BICCH, this is my baby too. You wasn't worried about her, he was out all night being a thot, effing men. He just started to become disrespectful. I responded to his disrespect, telling him that his name is him on the birth certificate and technically it's not his daughter. He calls me a stripper, I calls him broke.
Now, were you scared at that point?
I was still scared, but I felt like I was able to respond to his disrespect.
Why was that?
Because the cops were there and I didn't think that they would leave us alone.
And you had put your firearm in the car?
I did.
Can I ask you, I mean, you had your firearm on you when he was threatening you. You could have just gone to your house with your firearm. Why would you call police?
Because I never would have thought it. I called police to protect me. I was never thinking of using my firearm at all.
So tell us what happens after. So you and him argue back and forth. We've all seen it. You've been here through the trial. We've all seen it. And then tell us what happens as the argument is ensuing and police officers are about to leave. Tell us what happens.
Officer Lamy asked me a question. She asked me, she's telling me that he stays here. She's asked me, how does he, or something about him staying there. And I told her and explained to her that he had just got out of the Cape County jail and that I was allowing him to stay there. He has no residency there. Let her know that his name is not on the lease, nothing. As I'm telling her that she's trying to tell me something else, so it appeared that I was like talking over her, but I was just finishing my explanation of him not having residency there asking them to remove him from the household. Officer Cross then tells me he can go back inside with the baby. He goes inside. I'm standing in the threshold of the doorway. As he walks past me, he tells me when the cops leave, he's gonna beat my ass.
And were you on the phone with someone?
I never got off the phone. My aunt was on the phone the entire time.
Were both of them on the phone?
Yes, they were.
And that's Rochelle Newell, Andrea Gonzalez?
Yes.
And he says when the cops leave, I'm gonna beat your ass?
Yes.
And do you inform the cops of what he's just said?
Immediately.
And what do they do? What's their response?
I asked them, I said, did y'all just hear him? I repeated what he just said. They didn't say it. I don't believe they said anything.
And what happens after that?
I asked, continuing to speak as of, okay, so what am I to do in a matter of defending myself? I didn't say if I shoot him out of self-defense because he keeps putting his hands on me, then I held accountable.
And what's the response?
Also, then he says, if you do that, just make sure you're able to articulate it in court.
And what do the officers do next?
Walk.
And Demonte's in the house?
Yes.
And they leave you at the house?
Yes.
Tell us what happens after that.
In the midst of them walking off and me being in the threshold of my doorway, my dogs got out. My dogs walked down the street, running down the street. My Nala is now in the doorway, helped me get the dogs back in the home. I tend to go up the street to get my dogs, I bring them back. I advise my dogs to go in the house prior to going inside my home. I do go to my car to retrieve my firearm and a tie rod.
Now, Ms. Johnson, you said that you were licensed to carry.
I am.
Tell us what it means to be licensed to carry.
To be able to hold a firearm and force defense areas like for safety and precautions.
What are requirements you had to go through to obtain a license to carry?
FBI clearance.
Anything else?
No, Georgia didn't. Georgia don't. You don't need to criminal license carrying the state of Georgia.
So.
Well, background check, but that was that phones.
Okay. So you go outside to get your dogs run outside. You go outside to get your dogs, and while you're outside, you go to your car and you grab your firearm. Where do you put your firearm?
In my right sweatpants pocket.
And you grab anything else?
Tire rod.
Okay. And when you say a tire, how big is it? How thick is it?
It's not really that thick. It's probably about this thick and probably about this long.
Now, why did you grab your firearm and the tire rod?
I grabbed my firearm, put my firearm in the receipts in the cars. It goes into my home in a lockbox.
Ms. Johnson, how did it make you feel knowing what had happened?
It still makes me feel the same way. I never wanted it to happen. I didn't intend for it to happen. I didn't mean for it to happen.
But in that moment, you felt like you had to defend yourself.
I did.
At the end of the day, she was found guilty of a lesser charge.
Quaneesha Johnson acquitted on the most serious charge.
As to count 1, malice murder, we, the jury, find Quaneesha Johnson not guilty. As to count 2, felony murder, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty of voluntary manslaughter. As to count 3, aggravated assault, family violence, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 4, aggravated assault, family violence, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 5, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, we, the jury, find defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 6, cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty. As to count 7, cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Quaneesha Johnson, guilty.
Demonte's mother made a victim impact statement.
They called me and told me, "Ma'am, do you know a Demonte Smith?" And my heart dropped. I had to describe my son to this woman. To this man. And I knew at that moment that he was gone. Because see, a mother's intuition tells you everything. That Sunday, 2 o'clock, I fell to my knees in the middle of the store with pains, and I didn't understand why. Because my son wasn't here anymore. All night I tossed and turned. I had no idea what was wrong. And I got to work, and the medical examiner called, and I couldn't get it together. I blacked out. And then the detective called me, and my first words was, "Where is she?" They said, "Who? Where is the woman that killed my son?" Because I knew it was you. A darkness dwelled inside of you. You took his life and said bye. You showed no remorse for him. None. Not for me, not for my daughter, not for his kids. I can't believe that I felt sorry for you for a moment. But I didn't know all the facts. I didn't know everything. I have no remorse for you. I have no empathy because you had no remorse for my son and you showed no empathy for him. You deserve every single year they can give to you.
During the sentencing phase, things did not go the way they wanted it because she was sentenced to 20 years, but the judge was really lenient with her.
And even though the jury did not hear the 911 tape of the previous domestic violence incident between Mr. Smith and another female, the court can consider that along with the police report and disturbing photographs of abuse to your minor child by the victim in this case. On the day of the incident, Ms. Johnson, I believe that you took all the necessary steps to ensure your safety after Mr. Smith had threatened to inflict bodily harm upon you. And it does not matter that you stayed out all night, or even if you stayed out for a week and leaving your children with whomever. That does not constitute that somebody would threaten you with serious bodily injury. Ms. Johnson, you called the alarm company, you called local law enforcement, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And when law enforcement arrived, they allowed you, the 2 people in this situation, to go into the home unescorted without any cooling off period, which resulted in the loss of Mr. Demonte Smith and resulted in your conviction for voluntary manslaughter. So when considering the aggravating and mitigating circumstances of this case, the court is required to impose a sentence that is sufficient but not greater than necessary. So Ms. Johnson, I will sentence you as follows. As to voluntary manslaughter, I will sentence you to 20 years to serve 10 years in confinement. The first 5 years of those 10 years to be served in prison, and the remaining 5 years to be served as home confinement. The remaining 10 years of the 20-year sentence will be served on probation. Special conditions of the 5 years of home confinement is that you must be fully employed. You can only leave your house for work, medical appointments, school, and for minor children, school appointments, minor children's therapy appointments, and minor children's school-sponsored activities. The hours of your work, school, and medical are only to be between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., and there is to be no one at your home at any time during the duration of your sentence who has a felony conviction. As to count 3, the aggravated assault, it will merge into count 2, voluntary manslaughter by operation of law. As to count 4, aggravated assault, I will sentence you to 10 years to serve, to run concurrent with count 2. As to count 5, the possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, I will sentence you to 5 years to serve consecutive suspended. As to count 6, cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, with the victim being Nyla Clark, I will sentence you to 12 months of probation to run concurrent with count 2. Special conditions of probation is that the minor child is to see a licensed therapist, counselor, or psychologist twice a month for 12 months. And that you are to attend and successfully complete parenting classes for 12 months. As to count 7, cruelty to children in the 3rd degree with Nuri Clark, I will sentence you to 12 months on probation. Conditions of probation, special conditions of probation are that that minor child also is to see a licensed therapist, counselor, or psychologist twice a month for 12 months, and that you are to complete parenting classes. I will sentence you under the First Offender Act, and I need to advise you, Ms. Johnson, of your rights post-conviction. Ms. Johnson, you have the right to seek post-judgment relief from your conviction of the crimes of voluntary manslaughter, aggravated assault, cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. By either making a motion for a new trial in this court and/or filing an appeal to a higher appellate court. If you want to file a motion for a new trial or appeal, then you would need to file the said motion or notice of appeal with the Clerk of Superior Court of this county, DeKalb County, within 30 days. You may want to more fully discuss this with your attorney. If a motion for new trial is made and the court denies it, you will have 30 days from the filing of the order of denial in which to file with the clerk of court your notice of appeal.
The state requested that Quaneesha be sentenced to 25 years in prison and 5 on probation, but the DeKalb County Superior Court Judge Shondiana Morris sentenced Johnson to 10 years in confinement, split between 5 years in prison and 5 more under house arrest with an additional 10 years on probation. Quaneesha's counsel planned to appeal that decision. The state requested that Quaneesha be taken into custody immediately upon being found guilty, but she will not yet begin her sentence because the judge granted her an appeal bond over the state's objection. So in short, Quaneesha was free to go home even though she was found guilty because the bond appeal was granted by the judge while they appealing the judgment.
Spoke to her for the first time, Ted, because even though she was sentenced to 5 years confinement, she is out on bond pending her appeal. So we got to see her walking out of the courthouse with her children, with her family. They've been upbeat when they go into the courtroom every day, but today was a different kind of relief, a different kind of happiness from those family members. And here's what she had to say about those who've been watching this trial and how she feels about everything that happened.
Something I went through for the rest of my life.
Your family's been here.
Very supportive, yes. A lot of them came from Philadelphia. It's sad. I mean, they say people show no remorse. I'm very remorseful. Just because I don't sit there and cry, and I can't cry on cue. I'm mentally disturbed. I'm disturbed and whole, you know. I can't express it enough. Like, I love Demonte to death, and I still to this day.
What would you change about that night if you could go back?
What I would change? Probably would have. I mean, I didn't know where to go, but you know, if I could have got my kids and left, which I was aiming to do. I don't really think there was anything else that I could have changed. You know, that was my home. My kids was in there. All I wanted to do was retrieve my kids.
Johnson also said she wishes that the police had done more that night, and that's something that Her Honor Judge Morris mentioned as well when she was sentencing, that these officers didn't protect her and they didn't protect Demonte Smith that night.
Some people took sides with Quaneesha because Demonte was known to abuse women. But some did not agree with that because they said Quaneesha had the chance to leave or tell him to leave during the domestic dispute. No matter what, no one should lose their life for silly things. The appeal is still ongoing as at the time of making this video. We hope the right call will be made during the appeal. Our sincere condolences to the friends and families of Demonte Smith. May his soul continue to rest in peace. Please stay safe of there and see you guys in the next video.